Firewatch. What a ride this game was. But was it worth the price of admission? Well, it certainly wasn't a bad game. Firewatch starts you out with these visual novel style blocks of text accompanied by a series of questions that have no impact on the way the plot unfolds. But it's always fun to answer random questions like this in games like these, so I'll let it slide. What this text does do is set up the premise of the story. You play as a middle-aged burly man whose wife was diagnosed with early onset dementia. Unable to deal with the harsh complications that come with this, you retreat to the mountains and take up a job as a fire lookout. So what you're looking at now is about as deep as the game gets as far as the gameplay goes. You walk to different areas using your map and compass to guide you. You jump down ledges, you climb up small cliffs, you find supply caches with random items inside, and eventually you can cut through debris. You can also look up in the sky to guide you at times because there are certain moments in the game where you're walking towards the smoke from a fire or other things you can see from far away. You can probably tell by now that this is a story-driven game, which isn't inherently a bad thing, it just means that it's going to be less of a game and more of an interactive experience. It's a very artsy game. You can tell this just by the first few minutes. The way the story is told, the brief segments of gameplay spiced in throughout the intro bit, the way the lighting is used in those different gameplay segments, very artsy. That being said, this game does look fantastic, especially in certain areas. The skybox is very well put together, which you'll especially notice when climbing up cliffs, and there are some great views thanks to the beautiful HD backgrounds combined with all of the nice looking forestry in the foreground. And that's apparently what the developers were going for, because they actually programmed a system into the game that allows you to purchase real-life prints of the photos you take with your in-game camera. I just thought that was a cool, interesting feature they threw in there. The only time I've seen this before is with Pokemon Snap on the N64. If you brought your memory card to a Pokemon Snap station at Blockbuster back when the game was released, you could have your in-game photos printed out in real life. But I digress. Because this is more of an interactive experience, I won't be too judgmental when it comes to the game's mechanics, but I just want to say, although this game handles great for the most part, there were times where I was playing where the character would just get stuck or hooked up on some random pieces of brush or tiny rocks that the player should easily have been able to jump over. I guess that's the problem with having an environment as organic as this. It looks much nicer than many of the other more mechanical environments from other games, but the collision detection is just a little off. There were times where I totally should have been able to get through an area of bushes, but the game just wouldn't let me. Most of the story is presented through this walkie-talkie that you pick up near the beginning of the game. You have conversations back and forth with your lookout partner, and as the story progresses, you learn about one another. It's sort of like the cassette tapes from Metal Gear Solid 5 in this regard. In fact, that game has the collision detection problem too. And by the way, the voice acting in this game, it's so good. I guess since there are only two main voice actors, they had to make them good, and man are they ever.
Hello? Whoever this is?
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
I'm Delilah.
Yeah, that's what the guy said on the phone.
The voices fit these characters perfectly, and all of the delivery is spot on. There are definitely parts of the game where the story took a different turn than I thought it would, which I guess is a good thing. It kept me on my toes, for the most part. I'm gonna get into the end of the game a little bit now, so spoiler warning. This game's build-up is fantastic. I finished this game with my girlfriend in basically one sitting, and we never do that. Usually it takes us months to finish a game, and although it isn't a hard game to finish in one sitting, given that it's only about a 4-hour game, it says something that we never wanted to stray away from this game before it was over. Unfortunately, I do think we were a little let down in the end. All that build-up leads to almost nothing when all is said and done. You're set up with this whole murder mystery scenario, but once you find out who did it, you and the other lookout are just sort of like, oh, okay, well, I guess there's nothing we can do about it now. And at the very end of the game, there's this giant fire that you have to struggle to get through in order to evacuate. I was expecting a little more excitement after all this build-up. Maybe the helicopter would crash and you wouldn't be able to evacuate, or maybe you'd make it to the other lookout tower and the murderer would be standing there with a gun, but no. You just evacuate calmly and the game ends. I can't be the only one who found this a little disappointing. I mean, I normally love happy endings, but I almost would have been more satisfied with a more depressing ending, where one of the characters dies or ends up in a coma or something, just to make this ending a little more exciting or interesting. But overall, it was a very interesting game, it just didn't have a very captivating climax. Is it worth the full $20 asking price? Not really, in my opinion. For its short length, the game just didn't leave me feeling as satisfied as it should have. The two main characters are interesting, the game is very pretty, and it'll entertain you for a few hours, but that's about it. I don't plan on replaying this game anytime soon, and I'm honestly not sure I'll remember it in a few years from now. I recommend you give it a playthrough if you haven't already, just to see a great example of how a game can be handled aesthetically, and for the short burst of entertainment it does provide, but wait until it goes on sale or play it at a friend's house. I give Firewatch a 7 out of 10.